All right, with that, we bring in Kellyanne Conway, former senior counselor to President Trump and his 2016 campaign manager, and Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama and 32 Advisors founder and CEO. Both, of course, are Fox News contributors. Kellyanne, let me start with you. Here's what President Trump had to say about this idea of unmasking ICE officers yesterday at the White House. Watch.
And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, there's a problem with that.
Kellyanne, welcome. What's your reaction to this whole issue and Democrats clearly making an issue of it?
Martha, I'm coming in hot on this one. I cannot believe an entire Democratic Party is sowing chaos and asking for violence. Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic Party in the House, saying, go fight the Trump people in the street, resist ICE agents. I'd ask Robert Wolf if he could be the first Democrat of sanity to stand up and say, this is just wrong. What is the job of these ICE agents? They are rooting out and eliminating MS-13 gang members, child rapists, human traffickers, drug mules. Do you not want this out of our country? And we can now, Martha, draw a direct line, a nexus, causation between what the Democrats are saying about inciting violence and the attacks on these brave men and women. Gee, the Democrats wanted our 3-year-olds to wear masks for 2 years during COVID, but our ICE agents can't do that to try to avoid being doxxed. This didn't happen overnight. This didn't happen this year. This happened in the Obama administration, where Robert served in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right,
we all remember that.
Let's give him a chance
pigs,
to respond.
Fry him up like bacon.
All right.
Yeah.
This is John Fetterman, one Democrat who seems to be a lone Democrat in many of these situations, is speaking out in defense of ICE. Watch.
ICE agents are just doing their job, and I fully support that. And for me, and people in my party might, want to abolish it or treat them as criminals or anything. That's inappropriate and outrageous. ICE performs an important job for our nation.
All right. So as I said, Fetterman's a standout. We couldn't really find anyone else who was speaking out on behalf of ICE. Robert, what do you think about your party's stance on this issue?
Yeah, well, Martha, you and I have chatted about this. I'm not for abolishing ICE. I don't support defunding the police. I don't think anyone should stay silent when there's any violence against any law officer. I don't care whether it's Capitol Hill, ICE, Governor Whitmer, conservative Supreme Court judges. I think people have to stand up and make sure that we denounce any type of violence, and especially when ICE is being, for the most part, being told to make sure that they get rid of criminals. I would say, with respect to what Kellyanne said, I'm hopeful that ICE is also listening to President Trump, that we don't go after farmers. I think what Joe Rogan said actually made a lot of sense. We should reiterate that we're going after criminals and gang members, and we're not going after construction workers or people working in hospitality and leisure or landscapers. So I do think we should separate at any point who we should be going after, the ICE agents, as well as making sure, absolutely, when there's violence, Democrat, Republican, everyone should be standing up. It's nonsense that people think shooting at police or shooting at ICE. I don't care if it's fireworks. Certainly, I support a ban on AR-15s, but that's a whole different topic. But that's insane that people aren't standing up and making sure we protect our law enforcement.
These people, Kellyanne, they are being targeted, and they do want to go home to their families at the end of the day. It is a unique situation, especially when you do have some lawmakers speaking out and saying, that they are that they're acting wrongly and that they, deserve to be taken off the streets and that they should show their faces. Where do you think this is going?
I think where it's going is ICE is going to continue to do its job. I interviewed the acting ICE director last night on this network, and he said, we're just going to plow forward. But I do think, Martha, like we've seen with local law enforcement, our police officers, you may see early retirements. You may see people who do want to serve stop doing that because their families are under threat. Look, I've said it before. I was just a staffer. I had 24/7 Secret Service and 4 little kids in the house because people are insane. And it's time for Democrats to stand up and say, we are protecting communities, not protecting criminals. That's a choice they must make as a party.
Yeah. You know, Robert, it was pretty clear in the last election that removal of criminals and people who had crossed the border illegally in the numbers in the millions was a huge concern for American citizens. Do you think that it's tone deaf when you listen to people like Hakeem Jeffries, who doesn't seem to understand what a big deal this was in the election?
Well, I think Hakeem understands that the 2 bookends for President Trump were immigration and inflation. It's very clear that President's, the big bill that just came, the thing he's going to tout are the tax cuts and more money for military and ICE. So I think it's clear. I think we should separate the idea of immigration and how agents are working versus violence. I think we have to make sure we're going after the criminals, we're going after the gangs. But, I think there has been recently a gray area to make sure that, we're going after the gang members and not some landscaper. So I do think we have to stay what President Trump said he was going to go after.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear that that is their major focus right now. We don't hear the kind of discussion about trying to drive the numbers higher as quickly as possible that we were hearing even a couple of weeks ago. And I do think there is a focus on making sure that, people who have longstanding relationships working here. This is a tough needle to thread. But I think we have to make sure that we're not ramping up violent rhetoric that makes these poor people who are just trying to do their job threatened with potentially not making it home at night. So we thank them for their protection. Thank you both for being here. Robert Wolf and Kellyanne Conway, great to see you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.